Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Well, it is exactly as expected. As Patrick Vallance warns, COVID jabs may be needed every year. As he warns, he will continue to push harder rules because there is an upswing when measures are lifted too quickly. And yeah, that's hardly a surprise. It's what we've expected for quite a while. That it seemed just as restrictions were being lifted, oh, there's a new Kent strain. Oh, it's okay because the vaccine is effective against that. Oh, but there's a South African strain, and it might not be effective against that. Oh, and of course it mutates ever so quickly, in which case we might have to do this annually instead. And oh, it's most effective in winter, because people are stuck inside. Therefore, we might need to bring back these measures at the end of the year as well. Yeah, funny that, isn't it? That when people are stuck inside and they don't have access to UV or vitamin D, then viruses, or coronaviruses, whether that be the common cold or some other Chinese variant, that they happen to be more transmissible. Yeah. We knew that. And yeah, that's just coming out from the government. It never ceases to amaze me just how behind the government is on their advice compared to what the rest of us know already. So as the Mail Online reports, government's chief scientific advisor said regular COVID jabs may be needed. And if they're trying to avoid conspiracy theorists saying that, you know, this is just a population control measure and you'll be needing it every year in order to do anything. Obviously, you saw that with Pimlico a little while back, that you'll be needing a vaccine to work for them, and HSBC saying that you need to wear PPE, otherwise your account will be closed. That now we're seeing it with cruises as well, that you'll need to be vaccinated in order to go on their cruise. But if they're trying to stop conspiracy theories, saying that, hey, it's being done, and it's being done frequently in order to control the populace because of what is in the vaccination, they're not really helping themselves out here at all. They're kind of playing into what the conspiracy theorists have said for a while, which really gets the noggin jogging, doesn't it? If the conspiracy theorists are correct about saying that it would need to be needed every year, what else might they be correct about? Funny that. So scientists, which ones, say there is a risk the virus could mutate to get around immunity, as they always do. Thankfully, viruses do tend to mutate into a way that is less fatal, simply because the virus wants to survive, if you could put some kind of sentience into a virus, and therefore they do not wish to kill the host, but instead they wish to be more transmissible, but less fatal, in order to infect more people and just spread their virus goodness around as much as possible. But a strain that is able to do this and overcome the vaccine is yet to be found. Yeah, not found yet, but don't you know, just when people are getting fed up with this lockdown, which is going to last till this Easter now, not last Easter, as we were promised. No, but this Easter. I know, government is lying about how long something will take. Shocking. Wow, they're a year out. Who would have guessed? 12 weeks into 12 months. Yeah, or 2 weeks, which is 12 days. 12 days into 12 months. What a surprise. But that they seem to find new mutations or new strands or new upticks from the coof at such convenience time in order to push the narrative further, that really activates those almonds, doesn't it? And if they are trying to avoid conspiracy theories, they're doing a bloody shit job. So let's read on. Britons may need to be vaccinated against COVID every year to keep the disease at bay, Sir Patrick Vallance warned today. Warned. And I'm glad that I do say warned, but it isn't really about saying that they need to be vaccinated every year, is it? It's what else is going on. Because when you're injected with something that has not had as much testing as you would wish it to have, and personally, I'm a fan of vaccination technology, even so far back as it was that there were orphans who had a disease, like smallpox, for example, and their blood was taken, injected into other people, and then they were vaccinated against the disease of smallpox. That it is bloody clever technology that they've been able to evolve it since then, and I think it is fantastic. And yet we have seen, with things like thalidomide, for example, the morning sickness treatment, that the longer-lasting effects are far more serious than the immediate remedies that are being offered. Morning sickness is bad. Yeah, not downplaying that at all. But having children missing limbs because of it, I would argue, is worse. And these only come out years after the remedy or the panacea has been administered. And so by trying to suggest that you could fast track such a treatment, I think is being incredibly misleading. By all means, you can fast track in seeing what the immediate side effects are, but you cannot sidetrack what the long-term side effects are, because by definition, that is what a long-term side effect is. And with things like infertility, for example, you would not yet know if that were the case. You wouldn't. So let's hope it isn't the case. But it could be. We simply don't know. So number 10's chief scientific advisor said a regular flu-style rollout may be required to keep on top of the virus for the next few years. But it's endemic at this point, so the next few years isn't good enough. It will need to be an annual thing, in which case, by all means, have it similar to the flu jab, which comes out each year, because of course it mutates, and China is a great example of how this mutates each year. But yes, we have them for the common cold or influenza or flu each year, and therefore it would be expected that we have it similarly for this virus. In which case, does that mean we need to lock down everybody for this flu-style rollout? No, we don't. We really, really, really don't. The eldest people, or the people in a high-risk category, may wish to keep themselves safe until they receive this new jab, but, again, it should be optional, just like the flu jab is. And it really is that straightforward. Yes. As it is a coronavirus, it is a mutation of the common cold. Just factually speaking. Sure, it may be more serious and more fatal than the common cold, if you wish to go down that route, but nonetheless it is a mutation of the common cold, in which case treat it just like you would with seasonal flu, as it is incredibly similar to that. And that is the simple solution. So let us hope that that is the route of which the so-called conservative government wish to go down, and it bloody well should be. We all know that UBI and trying to keep people just on life support from the state is not a sustainable manner, in which case people do actually need to create or provide value in order for that money to be created in the first instance. Sure, you can print currency out of nothing, but it isn't going to be worth anything if there's nothing there to back it up. Historically, there was gold, and now it is linked to the economy, but if you're fucking over the economy because you wish to just provide people universal basic income, which is essentially what this is doing, of UBI, then there isn't going to be any value in the currency whatsoever. Speaking of economy and prices, COVID vaccines are likely to cost number 10. It's not number 10, mate. It's the taxpayer. It's you and me. Upwards of £1 billion this year alone. Well, is that going to be within the NHS budget of a, what is it, 14 billion? No, of course not. And that's already, underfunded apparently. with health bosses understood to have signed a deal in the region of £600 million to get hold of 40 million doses from Pfizer. Yes, of course, socialised health system makes everything cheaper, so it's really, really affordable. Are you sure about that? 15 quid each. Not sure, as the UK spends around £200 million each year on its annual flu vaccine rollout, which sees around 15 million people jabbed over the course of the winter. These are really phenomenal figures, aren't they? They really are. Experts say around 70% of the population, or 46 million people, will need to be vaccinated against COVID to achieve herd immunity and stop the virus spreading. Well, that really depends which experts you believe, as of course Fauci did start off with that, but then he increased the number because he said, well, hey, we couldn't trust you with the truth, and therefore we gave you a lower estimate. But now that we think that you're ready for something more real, we're going to be more honest with you and raise it up to 85% instead. So which experts are you on about, and how much do we trust them? And that is the worst thing, especially, of course, with China having bought out the World Health Organization. Then we cannot trust them. That is why they were buying up PPE when telling the rest of the world there was no problem. That is why they bought out the World Health Organization to ignore what Taiwan was saying, that there is human-to-human transmission. And of course, with Dr. Fauci saying that herd immunity would exist at a lower rate than was said afterwards, and of course the same chap again saying that masks didn't really have any beneficial effect, but came out later to say, yes, they do, and we always knew that, but we were just saving at that for our health services. Then of course there is going to be a lack of trust when it comes to your so-called authoritative sources or your experts. Of course there is going to be a lack of trust because there are admitted lies time and time again. So Patrick said studies have now suggested vaccines will work on the Kent variant, although there are still some question marks over other strains, including the South African one. And as I say, that is just to cover their asses. So if people are starting to be reticent about the response from the government about the COOF, and they wish to try and show a force of action against it, then they can simply say, oh no, it doesn't work and this one is worse, and therefore you have to do what we say in order to be protected, because this variant is worse, and it was definitely okay doing what we told you before, wasn't it? Even though, of course, it wasn't. Now, thankfully, there is no talk of this going into the roots of California, New York, particularly New York, of course. We're saying that if you are thought or suspected to have been in contact with somebody with a contagious disease, that you will have to be quarantined at one of their detention camps. And I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. As I say, thankfully, that is not as far as the UK government seems to be wishing to go at this point, and there isn't any highly publicised story about it. However, of course, I would not be surprised, especially given the UK self-defence laws, especially when it comes to domestic threats, as in from the government, are very, very incredibly lacklustre. And of course you might be thinking, well, even if you had guns or such, it wouldn't really stand up to the UK military. But have you not considered places like the Middle East or the Vietnamese War? Yeah, this is mainly an on-the-ground fight. And even the YouTuber Lindy Page talked about this in terms of trying to get people to surrender, that they can only surrender if there is a person there to surrender to, not if there is just aerial bombardment, because then they're not against a human anymore, they're just against a machine. And it's easier to be apathetic to a machine than it is to be apathetic to a human. So, leading on, we're just going to go to say some coronavirus restrictions could still be in place next winter, Top Advisor warns. So coronavirus restrictions could still be in place next winter despite mass rollout of the vaccine, Sir Patrick Vallance has warned. Although England's third lockdown could be gradually lifted from March, top advisors say, as in Good Friday, Easter, they add some measures such as social distancing and face masks could remain in place until next year. For the entire year. Yes, we're going to go through yet another summer where this is the case. And if you hadn't already thought that, the economy's going to be screwed, especially small businesses, they're going to be screwed because this is the biggest wealth transfer in history, and it's just the larger businesses that people are funneled towards because of the cooperation between corporations and state. Yes, there is an ism for that, beginning with F. But of course you can't acknowledge that this is de facto fascism, but that is the case, not only because people are being funneled towards them because that is the only place that they are allowed to shop in person, but also because, of course, the small businesses are being squeezed out because of the new laws put into place in order to just keep afloat the larger businesses because of their lobbying efforts and because they're sympathetic to what the government intends to do. Yes, it is now done across ideological grounds, not across meritocratic grounds. That is why it is the largest wealth transfer we've seen in history. And the inflation, of course, does not help this, as that squeezes out the middle class by devaluing all of the savings that the middle class has. And for the working class, or lower class, however you wish to call them, that any income that they get from these bonds or COVID grants, whatever you wish to call them, has to be spent on immediate necessities and is therefore funneled back to one of the few companies that is able to be open, in which case, again, biggest wealth transfer in history. Meanwhile, the few oligarchs are just getting richer and richer because there was nowhere else to spend their money. But yes, of course, social distancing and face masks must remain in place until next year. Again, if you look at evidence for asymptomatic transmission, you're going to see that that is negligible. And if you look into the effect of face masks as well, the effect is negligible. But I suppose that these are just alternative facts, or inconvenient truths, to use their own term against them, and therefore is not accepted. So the chief scientific officer told Sky News today that despite it being likely the UK would be in a better position by next winter, he didn't think Britons could assume all measures would be lifted. It's pretty much 2 years then. 2 weeks into 2 years. Fucking hell. To quote, "It's more likely to be making sure that we wear face masks in certain places, making sure that we keep up with hand washing, making sure that we're sensible about the way in which we interact with people in indoor environments," he said. Except, of course, banning people from exercising and using gyms even if they're external anyway, and putting up signs around calisthenic parks which are outside to say that people can't use them, even though, of course, the exercise and the fresh air and the UV light and vitamin D is beneficial in scrubbing off this virus. Yep, so you either think that the people that vote for you are incredibly thick and can't be trusted, in which case what is the bloody point in keeping the facade of democracy, or the coup is not the reason that you're being so authoritarian, in which case what's the point in keeping democracy anyway? It is fraudulent at this point. It really is. As we've seen, of course, evidently, with the US election, and now Labour's come out as quite blatantly trying to steal an election in the UK as well. It just seems to be the fact that if you are left-leaning, you're going to take power by any means necessary, under the guise of whatever the Overton window deems as permissible at the given moment, and that is going to be the end of it. But with that, that's it for me. So let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think that it will mutate each year, in which case it is necessary to keep these jabs, and evidently it is so lethal, so we're going to have to stay this way for the rest of our lives. Or if you think, no, just keep it optional, just like you do with the flu vaccine, and yes, we understand 70% herd immunity, 70% immunity is required for herd immunity, but keeping it optional and just jabbing the older people or the people at higher risk is going to be beneficial. Or if you think, actually, I think there's some backtracking going on here to try and say that we can't actually sort it out all at once, and instead would need to be an annual thing, and it would just be memory hold because they've seen too much resistance. Either way, let me know down below. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, until next time, have a good one.